And good evening, folks. I'm John Smith.
And I'm Jason Speedy.
And we also have T.C. Tracy Cline with us, joining again in Toronto. Welcome back, T.C. So, how was everybody's first inaugural family day here in New Brunswick?
Very well. Got to spend it with the family.
Yeah. You guys already had it in Ontario, didn't you?
We did. Unfortunately, my place of work does not observe it.
So that was my day anyway too. Spent it with family.
Yeah.
I guess we might as well just jump right into the thick of things. We've got a lot to talk about. It's been a busy 2 weeks here. So I think we're going to change it up a little bit and jump right in with the NHL. We usually don't start with hockey. It's usually the finisher, but we'll start with her today. They're really, like I tend to say a lot with hockey, they don't really give us an incredible amount to talk about. I mean, there's not too much drama. It's usually just the games and who's winning, who's losing. There was a trade, a fairly big trade this last week, I guess it would have been. Other than that, I mean, there's been a couple other little stories, but nothing too crazy. I imagine as trade deadline gets closer, it'll pick up a little bit. You'll see some guys going from non-contenders to contenders and so on and so forth. But the trade that did happen or take place so far was Dion Phaneuf. He was jettisoned out of there. And I think it's a pretty good trade for both teams.
So let me ask you this. I mean, anybody that watches the show, and I readily admit, I don't really follow hockey as much as, say, the other three sports. Could you tell me what the significance of trading a Dion Phaneuf for Marian Gaborik is? I mean, Phaneuf, to me, just looking at, basic stats, points, plus minus, winning teams, except power play, he hasn't had really any type of impactful season in almost a decade. It was a big deal when he was traded all over social media, but for just somebody who's kind of, the casual fan, casual fan, I don't see the significance. As far as Marian Gaborik, I didn't even know he was still in the league, so...
Well, this trade would have been huge 10 years ago. I mean, it's still a significant trade in the amount of dollars that were shifted, more or less, I guess, is probably the biggest thing. Ottawa gets some cap relief by getting rid of Phaneuf. Gaborik, I think, only has 2 years left, whereas Phaneuf had 3 or 4. Ottawa did have to eat a bit of Phaneuf's salary to ship him out. But
to me, the only really big deal about him, and he is on Sportsnet and TSN quite often. Because he's played for a majority of Canadian teams. If not his whole career.
It was Calgary, Toronto, and then Ottawa.
Yeah, that's right. So he's more known to be married to a famous actress who used to date Sean Avery. You know what I mean? That's
The thing with Phaneuf, I loved him in Toronto, and I hated him in the same breath. After he started out so good and is young, it's the way I'm interpreting it anyway, is he started out really good as a really good young defense when he was younger. Went to Toronto, and I think Toronto overcast him. They put him in as the number 1, number 2 top defensive guy, when realistically at that point in his career he was more of a number 3, number 4, and now he's probably down to the 4 or number 5. But he's one of those guys, to me anyway, he doesn't really help you too incredibly much, but he doesn't really hurt you too incredibly much either. He's just
steady
not. Yeah, he's not going to make too many mistakes. He's not going to score too many goals anymore. But he makes the solid play 9 times out of 10. But that was the biggest thing against him in Toronto, is he made the stupid play. But I think that was a bit of Toronto putting him up too high in their lineup, and I think they did the same thing with Phil Kessel. Because you look at Kessel now when he's gone and plays kind of the third fiddle to Crosby and Malkin. What he's been able to do just flies under the radar. So that's just kind of the way I interpret it. St. Louis already has a pretty solid defense, so he'll pop down to the 4th, 5th, LA, sorry. I was thinking of St. Louis because they got Soshnikov from Toronto, and they're talking about getting some other guys, but
never even heard of him.
No. He's a decent young player. He played, I think, 50 games last year. Hasn't played too much this year due to an injury, and then played in the minors, but TC, what is your take on the trade for Phaneuf for Gaborik?
It's all about the money, guys. For sure. When Eugene Melnyk is kind of public enemy number 1 right now in Ottawa. When they had empty seats through the playoffs last year, that kind of left a bad taste in his mouth, and the focus for him right now is, of course, trying to keep Karlsson. So let's not eliminate, what the motivation is there. I mean, there's an end game here with Karlsson where, if you want to free up some dough and keep this guy, you better do it fast, right?
Yeah.
And I think Karlsson's already said that he's going to go where he can get paid his market value. So they need to make some space if they want to be able to give him the kind of offer that would let him stay.
So do you see Ottawa as being done with the trades? I mean, Brassard's kind of name's been out there. Hoffman is another one who's kind of been out there.
Mark Stone's still out there. He's still restricted, right? So, and he's only 25 years old. He makes $4 million a year or something like that. He would do well somewhere else. I'm sure he would flourish. He'd have a better team around him if he went to a contender right now. I could see somebody throwing some dollars at him and prying him loose from Ottawa.
So here's another one for you with Ottawa. You said it about the ultimate goal is to kind of re-sign Erik Karlsson. If you end up shipping out these young guys like Brassard, Stone, I guess Brassard's not young, but I mean some of these more talented players, Brassard, Stone, and Hoffman, are you kind of hurting your chances to re-sign Karlsson a little bit? Just you're going to want to play with a winning team. And if you're shipping out some of your top talent for future prospects, do you think that hurts you at all?
Sure. I think there's a very fine line there. I think Ottawa's made it clear with the terms of what they would need in order to get rid of Brassard that they don't really want to get rid of some of their key offensive players. I mean, they struggle enough as it is to put the puck in the net, right? So Stone, I think they have to get a heck of an offer in order to get rid of Stone. Yeah. But then again, that's what it's all about for them right now. You can see with that Phaneuf deal, it may be different with a guy as young as 25 with Stone. It may be different. He may be an untouchable, and we just don't know it yet. But I can think of a few teams around the league that would sure love to have Mark Stone.
Yeah, and you kind of the same thing. Just
well, I mean, if I was a uber competitive athlete like Karlsson seems to be with what he can bring to a team on the cusp of really challenging for something. I mean, you kind of brought it up. I mean, if you're trading the pieces that could get you back to the conference championship, trading the pieces around you. I mean, what's the point of wasting your career? I mean, that's what I mean. Do you want to sacrifice some dollars and maybe go to a contending team and be that missing piece, or do you want to be, the top man on the totem pole for a team that's, constantly looking up? I mean, I don't think Toronto's going anywhere in the future as far as down. I mean, I think they're up at the, Pittsburgh's, Washington, Boston's. I mean, Boston's really got a good young core. So I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. I mean, it's definitely what his priority is going to be, and like TC said, he's made it very clear he's going to go. Money is important to him in that regard. So, but I mean, money on a contending team is different than money on a team that's team that's near the bottom, and if the pieces that are around you are traded or moved out, along with the uncertainty of the fans and all that sort of stuff too. I mean, it's just a lot.
Well, and there's a bit of turmoil too in the management with Ottawa as well. Just their vice president or president of hockey ops just walked out, and I believe Pierre Dorian's taken over for that. So I mean, it seems like there's a bit of turmoil near the top there too. So it's hard to say if any of that had anything to do with maybe some of the guys being shipped out, or the owner kind of saying maybe we want to try and rebuild on the fly sort of thing, and maybe the general manager didn't agree with it. Maybe he thought they were a couple of pieces away sort of thing. 'Cause, I mean, they were one goal away from a cup last year, so or to play for the cup, I guess. Yeah. What is your take on Ottawa, I guess? I mean, do you see the turmoil too, or?
Oh yeah, absolutely. They're a mess. And I think there's no question Karlsson's gone. In my opinion, I think Karlsson's gone. I just don't think they can do enough between now and when the contract expires. I think another example of that is John Tavares.
Yeah.
John Tavares, I know he loved playing on the island, but he, he's only making $5 million here. Do you know that?
Yeah, he's getting a bargain, or they're getting a bargain. I guess he's not.
Sure are, and he's not going to wait 4 years for the new rink. He wants to contend now while he's in his prime, and he's got to go. they've got a couple of really interesting young players, you know, that are among league leaders in scoring. They're a fun team to watch.
Well, I mean, Barzal. Who's seen that coming with Barzal?
Yeah, they just can't. They can't stop anybody, right? That's the problem.
Do you see them kind of now shifting over to the Islanders? Do you kind of see them making a play for maybe Craig Anderson, I guess, even from Ottawa, or maybe Peter Mrazek from the Red Wings? I have heard that the Flyers and Red Wings are in talks for Mrazek to go to the Flyers, but I mean, Craig Anderson's another name that could possibly be thrown out there. I mean, he's 36, but if you're a good team like the Islanders are and just need help taking or stopping the puck, he's proven in the past that he can do it. However, I mean, he's having an off year this year, but maybe put a better team in front of him. Do you kind of see the Islanders making a play for a goalie and trying to make that push to kind of keep Tavares there?
Yeah, I think they absolutely have to. I don't think they have any choice. I think if they have any hope at all of keeping Tavares there, I still think it's going to be too little too late. I think he's gone.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see, but I think he's gone. I think there are a couple other young up-and-coming teams around the league that would intrigue him, and they need to find some cap space, though, because he's going to be a $10 million guy.
Yeah,
sure.
And it's too bad that he's going to cost so much, because it'd be nice to see him come back to Toronto. But I can't see it happening. I mean, they'd have to ship out a couple of guys.
GMs can get pretty creative. You never know.
But kind of with Toronto, how do you see them handling this trade deadline day? I mean, I've heard Mike Babcock say that he thinks that they're good enough to, or he's trying to prove to Lou that they're good enough to get maybe a couple of pieces to push them over. So far, the only domino that's dropped was Soshnikov, who I kind of mentioned, to go to the St. Louis Blues for a fourth-round pick. And I believe that's more just kind of clear up. They were at their 50-man roster limit. So
I don't think there's any question. Sorry, John, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I was just going to ask.
I don't think there's any question that those guys, they have to make a move. It's not, will they? If they don't, it's ridiculous. If they don't, they're satisfied with either first round of the playoffs or maybe second round.
So where do you see them needing the most help, I guess? Because, I mean, they've got a talented forward group. Dermott's jumped right in, and he's looked awesome for them. So, I mean, do you want to bring in another big-name defense and have to bump that guy down when he's really kind of proven that he can play with the big guys? Or
Yeah, you know what? It's actually really interesting. To see Dermott jump in like that was pretty encouraging. But, there are a couple of names out there that everybody's talking about. One is Mike Green with Detroit. But the really interesting thing to me is John Carlson, Washington, right?
Yeah.
So you look at Carlson, who's 28, versus Green, that's 32 years old. These guys make basically the same money, and Green is not really a scoring defenseman. They're both big right-handed guys. That's what they're looking for. But absolutely, I'd be taking Carlson.
So would you drop Dermott out of the defensive line, or maybe Polak?
Yeah, no, Polak would go.
Yeah, that would be my choice too.
Ainsley's tailing off too, right? I mean, he's been really great this year for what you knew you had, but he's getting older, and he's tailing off as well.
Well, and he had a nice long run there last year in the playoffs too with Pittsburgh. Yeah. So, I mean, it's hard to say when you're 38, I think he is, or 37. It starts to wear off a little bit. What do you see?
I got nothing. Go ahead.
So then, I guess really, other than that, there hasn't been really too many moves. I mean, just a couple of rumors and stuff. But I mean, the deadline, it's coming right up at 28th or 27th or somewhere around there anyway. Lost my dates. Then I guess really the other big story in the NHL that's kind of come out over the last 2 weeks was just the racism that Devontae Smith-Pelly had to endure there a couple of nights ago. They were chanting, I think, basketball or something at him as he was in the penalty box. I did read an article today, though, that the Blackhawks have suspended or however you banned the fans, I guess, those fans from going to the hockey games in Chicago. I think maybe all arenas should kind of follow suit and just be like, sorry, boys, you missed your chance. And I think maybe that's something that all sports could do. If you get caught doing something like that at any of the games, you're banned from all the arenas, not just one. So,
well, what happened in at Fenway Park last year between what Adam Jones, experienced and that kind of changed everything. That set a new precedent as far as you're banned from the sports arena. And frankly, good on them for doing so. It's a privilege, not a right, to be able to go and you know, be a part of an experience, sports experience like that. And if you're not going to, you know, conduct yourself in a you know, an adult, mature way, respectful way, to not only to the players, I mean, or
the fans
whatever, but
too,
I mean, it's the fans around you. I mean, this is just an incident that happened at a hockey game. I mean, it shouldn't be generalized I mean, you know, as a symptom of a lot of people that were there, you know what I mean? So what I'm trying to get at is the fans don't want to hear that either, you know what I mean? Like, they don't want to be subject to that, and so yeah, I think.
So do you think that would be too rough of a penalty if you were banned from all arenas, all games?
No, absolutely not. I mean, you lose that you lose that privilege.
Yeah.
And you know what? Maybe what you have to lose will make you a better person going forward, and maybe you can learn from that. However, you know, I would say most people just get more emboldened to act that way, and instead of looking themselves in the mirror, they put the blame on
somebody else,
the Blackhawks organization, or on the player, or whoever, whatever the case, you know, whatever, rather than look at themselves and say, yeah, maybe, you know what, maybe I was the problem and what I said is a problem, rather than, you know, it's them that have the problem, and I was just being funny. I was just, you know, drunk.
Yeah.
You know, which is ridiculous of an excuse anyway, but.
What do you think, TC? Do you think that would be too harsh of a penalty? Do you think it would kind of eliminate some of these buffoonery from games?
Yeah, and I don't think there's a lot, but I do believe that that the punishment is fitting of the crime. You know, I think back just a couple weeks ago, we touched on the NHL All-Star Game. They did a great story on New Brunswick's Willie O'Ree.
Yeah.
And, you know, we celebrate diversity in the game, and then something like this happens. So, no. And Jason, you touched on it as well, right? There's alcohol, right? You go to these things, and people are idiots. There's no other word for it. Get them out of the rink. Absolutely. You know,
I'd like to see it stepped right up, and just you're banned from the game, like all games. You can't go to any arena for whatever the term may be, 5 years, 10 years, for life. I mean, depending on how serious they were or how it went. And I think it should even go the same way, like in baseball, like the fans with the Blue Jays 3 or 4 years ago throwing the bottles on the field and anything like that. If you can't conduct yourself in, like Jason said, a responsible, mature manner, then get out. Like, because I mean, there are fans there that do want to enjoy the game and not see your buffoonery.
Oh yeah, and I mean, I've seen, you know, poor fan behavior. You know, I'm sure we all have, right? And it's an uncomfortable feeling, because it's unnecessary. I mean, you pay your money, you want to go enjoy the game, you have every right to boo, cheer, do whatever, but when it's impeding on somebody else's, or, you know, children around and things like that, it's just gone too far. I mean, it's just, you know, it's just too much.
So I think we've all agreed that it's pretty well. It's good on the way the Chicago Blackhawks handled it, and I mean, it would be nice to see it even go a step further. I mean, I also think even with the suspensions in all the professional sports, slap them a little harder, and then, I mean...
Well, yeah, and you know, I mean, if you were just to kind of read the comments in a vacuum, I mean, some people might just say, well, that's not racist, that's not... But you're not the person that it was done to, you know what I mean? So... It's not about how you interpret it. It's how he did, whether you agree with, you know what I mean, whatever you see it that way or not. And that's how it is, you know what I mean? You can form your own opinion, and that's that. But, you know, I could see how some people might think, oh, you know, I mean, in today's world, things are, you know,
I mean, Donald Trump's
amped,
president,
right? Well, I mean, not only that. I mean, it's not only that. I mean, everybody's, to a point, somewhat, you know, everything gets amped up, you know what I mean? One way or the other. So,
so I guess that's pretty well all I wanted to touch on in the NHL. Was there anything that we kind of missed there, TC, that you wanted to get on with the NHL? I mean, like I said, there wasn't really too much. I mean, Boston's kind of going down on a slide a bit now, but I mean, it was bound to happen. That pace they were at was unsustainable. Tampa Bay's kind of slowing down a little bit too. So I mean, but other than that, I mean, there really hasn't been.
The biggest thing for me, I think, is probably going to be what happens with Vegas on the 28th.
Yeah.
And you got a few of the Black Knights on the unrestricted free agent list on the trade block, but you wonder if they just, if they come up with something, or if they hang on to these guys at the end of their contracts. James Neal is a great example. Carlson there as well. And you're wondering what's going to happen with those guys, and how they came out of the chute is unbelievable for me. So that's what's really got me intrigued this year.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, that'd be interesting. Like, it'll be interesting to see how they play it, because when they did do the expansion draft, they were picking because they figured they'd be not a great team. They were picking so that they would be able to have some trade leverage to get some prospects or some picks or what have you. But now they've come out flying and they're playing like a team. But I think
I'd say don't do a thing.
No, I would too. I mean,
you know
maybe
what?
Try and get
let
boost.
Let the chips fall where they may. I mean,
maybe be buyers or whatever. But
I wouldn't change a thing. I mean, they have a legitimate chance of winning the President's Trophy. I mean, that's unheard of and for an expansion team. And I mean, we sat here and said, I won't be. I predicted that they make the Western Conference Championship. You know what I mean? And so it will be interesting though, because I think everyone is rooting for them given what happened just before the season started.
And I think it's cool too, just how they were kind of a bunch of cast-offs going to another team, and they all come together. I think it kind of shows you how if you put the team before yourself, then you can play really well. And kind of tying into this a little bit, it would be like the Cleveland Cavaliers of old, not the new ones, but of the old ones that they had just gotten rid of, how they were all playing for themselves and not for the team. But when you play for the team, you're more successful. So it's kind of interesting to me just how that works, I guess.
Oh, they're a great story. Yeah.
Other than that, I mean, like I said, just teams going up and down, but you can pretty well tell in the NHL kind of who's a legitimate threat and who's kind of going to be the sellers at this point. So, I mean, I think Toronto and the Atlantic's 20 points up on the next team behind them. So you can kind of pretty well tell who's who and what's what in the NHL now. It's just a matter of losing a few games, winning a few games sort of thing. But should be interesting. Now I think I would like to jump into the NBA because, I mean, there was a lot that's happened over the last 2 weeks. I mean, I think on our last show we kind of berated the Cavs a little bit. At least
T.C.
Yeah, me and Jason did. T.C. was thought they were doing all right, or thought they would be all right. I guess you didn't think they were doing all right, but you thought they'd be all right. So the big trades, I guess, Isaiah Thomas going to the Lakers. First game coming off the bench, he says, "I feel like myself again." So, I mean, that kind of says a little something there about playing for yourself, I guess, more than for the team. Because I think he was playing for the max contract and was a little frustrated.
There's no doubt
that he wasn't getting the touches.
He's playing for money, and there's no question about that.
So in these trades, I guess they brought in Clarkson,
Larry Nance,
Rodney Hood. So with some of these other teams, I guess, like with Utah, do you think they received enough for some of these guys they got rid of? I mean,
well, Rodney Hood was going to be an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year anyway, and he wasn't going to be re-signing there. Utah's, I think, won 11 in a row or 11 of their last 12. What they've been able to do after losing Gordon Hayward, Rudy Gobert's been in and out of the lineup. Donovan Mitchell's is legitimate. Like, if Ben Simmons hadn't sat out last year, he'd probably be Rookie of the Year. So what Quinn Snyder's done an excellent job coaching. I mean, realistically, they're not going to beat the Rockets or the Warriors, probably not even the Spurs or Timberwolves, or probably the Thunder in the 7-game series. So, I mean,
they're a fun team to watch, though, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah, for sure. And so did they get enough back? I mean, it's the contracts and the money and all that sort of, I mean, they cut Derrick Rose and all that sort of stuff too, right? So, I mean, it's, none of the buyout players are going to be going there necessarily.
So here's a question. You mentioned about them cutting Derrick Rose. Is he done in the NBA? Do you guys see him being done? Like, retired?
Unfortunately, I think, I think the skills of what he could bring to the table, they're just not there anymore. And, over the last couple of years that we've talked, I guess over the last year, I mean, he's taken some sabbaticals. He didn't show up for a game last year when he was with the Knicks. And, just the constant injuries and that sort of stuff. I mean, you've never really heard of him being like a great, locker room guy, whereas someone like a Richard Jefferson, who is long in their career, there to mentor the young players, kind of be, 10th man on the bench, that sort of thing. I don't see Derrick Rose really fitting into that. I know when Cleveland signed him, I know they signed him for the league, vet minimum, and they squeezed a little bit out of him, but he also did miss a lot of time too. So I mean, will a team like the Warriors or the Rockets or the Celtics pick him up? No, I mean I can't. I would be shocked myself. Yeah. I mean I know the Rockets picked up Joe Johnson and the Celtics picked up Greg Monroe. So I don't. I don't see it. I mean maybe a fringe team might sign him or something if he still wants to play. But I mean, you never really. Yeah. I don't know.
Here's one for you, TC. Do you see his old running mate Joakim Noah being done? Because I mean, there's been some controversy with him coming out of New York and stuff with Hornacek. Is he another one that's kind of going to be done in the league? Do you think?
I don't know, and I agree with you both that I think Derrick Rose is toast, and I think you couple all the off-court stuff with the injuries and all that, and I think he is done, and rightly so. You're right, Jason. It's possible that Dallas or maybe a Phoenix or something might pick him up, but I don't know why they would. Honestly, they're some talented young players. The thing about Joakim Noah that he kind of has going for him, I guess, is there's some history there. With the big games, big moments, and with that size, and he's a good defender. He's long, and he's going to get you some rebounds. And if that's all you need for 10 or 12 or 15 minutes a game, he might be a pretty good pickup.
Do you see him down in New York?
I think there's. Oh yeah, he's definitely down in New York. But I think there's he would need to accept a buyout. And I don't think he's willing to do that because he would have to eat some of the money that's owed to him. So, or from what that's my understanding. Maybe that's wrong, but there's always the answers to all the questions is something to do with money. You know what I mean? So I mean, I think he could help. A team that is struggling in the rebounding department, but whether they could work out the financial details that would be necessary. Will be, we'll have to wait and see, I guess. But yeah, he could definitely help, a team that could shore up some rebounding, especially for the playoff run, which I think they only got 22 games left till the playoffs start. So, I mean.
Also on the trades, I mean, the Cavaliers totally stole trade deadline show, but kind of with the Lakers, how do you think they fared in picking up Isaiah Thomas and freeing up some of that contract from Clarkson, some of the long-term? A few weeks ago, there was reports that they weren't going to be players in this free agency. They were kind of waiting for next free agency. But getting rid of Clarkson, do you see this kind of moving it up a little bit? And maybe now they can be players in this free agency? Or
Well, we'll see. I mean, they got some moves to make as far as they would really benefit from somebody taking Luol Deng's contract. But nobody's going to want to pay him $17 million to sit on their bench. I mean, I really don't know the reason why he's not playing. I mean, why wouldn't you showcase him if he could at least get you something, right? I think, they do have the money freed up now to get to big name, free agent contracts next summer. Is that Paul George and LeBron James? Who knows? You're going to need a lot more than just those two to contend, though. So
we haven't talked too much about James, I guess. You mentioned him a little bit. Do you see him sticking with Cleveland, or do you see do you think these moves do you think the moves would be enough for him to kind of
look? It's good to get all hot and horny, but let's face it. They played the Celtics. They had a lot of energy. The Celtics have played like crap over the last really since their 16-game winning streak. They're a 500 club, but they've really struggled lately. They can't score. If the rookies aren't they've hit the wall. I mean, the 82-game season, they're not used to playing this many games, you know what I mean? So the Jason Tatums and the Jaylen Browns and the Marcus Smarts and stuff like that, I mean, they've hit a lot. Now, they'll come back and they'll be a force in the playoffs. And then they went to Oklahoma City, who routinely plays pretty well against good teams and then loses against crap teams. So, and they just and OKC hung 148 on them last time. So,
Still,
we'll see. I mean, they got some energy and things, but let's see how they respond when they lose a couple in a row.
Yeah.
I'm still not sold that, Larry Nance Jr. and Jordan Clarkson is necessarily going to get you over the hump necessarily. I still don't think they're as good as the Raptors for me, but they do. I mean, they have definitely some fresh legs as opposed to Dwayne Wade and Derrick Rose and Iman Shumpert and the like, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, and Kevin Love will be back, but how that all reintegrates, time will tell.
What do you think, TC, on this Cleveland LeBron James? Do you see him staying? Do you kind of see him bolting? Did GM do enough to kind of keep him there, or maybe entice him a little more?
Well, I think all he's thinking about is his playoff run. That's what I believe. I think that's all he's thinking about right now. But somewhere in the back of his mind, I think he's ready to go. I think you look at LA freeing up, what was it, Jason, $70 million or something, right? They freed up $70 million in cap space, guys. That's pretty enticing. You hear Kobe on the radio yesterday talking about
I don't need to recruit for them.
LA doesn't need to recruit these guys, right? They come to the history of LA.
Yeah.
I think the time is right for him to go out there, and he doesn't like the owner. I don't know. I think he's done. I think he's done with the whole thing. And this is the thing. I feel so bad for like Zach LaVine, for example, right? He leaves LA, leaves Showtime. LeBron quite potentially could end up in LA next year, or leave these guys in a hole for years to come. They could suffer, the guys that he leaves behind. They could.
Well, I mean, that was Kyrie for the first couple of years too. So, I think the year he left, they went from a 67 or 65 win team down to like a 23 or something. It was crazy. So I
have a lot of cap space, right? Especially let's say they do manage to offload Noah. They've been trying to line up for him for 2 years.
To get him.
So,
I mean, he's still the best player in the league. I mean, he is getting old though, in basketball terms. But I mean, I don't mean that in a bad way. But I mean,
I'd love to see him go to like Milwaukee. Honestly, put him next to Giannis and maybe like mentor him into becoming the next you. Like that'd be awesome. I don't think it'll ever happen because
then you stunt what Giannis will is ascending to. I mean, we all can appreciate LeBron's talents, but he never got there by himself.
No, I agree with you.
And frankly, nobody ever has. But there's a reason why he went and maneuvered his way to Miami with already an all-star and brought another all-star with him. You know what I mean? Like, and really, they should have lost, that other series to the Spurs. So 1 out of 4 years in a row. I mean, getting there 4 years in a row when he was with Miami is remarkable.
I think he's on 7 now, isn't he?
Yeah, he'll be going for 8 this year. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from the guy, but he is 33, and I mean, say he gets an injury. But nevertheless, LA wants stars. He's a star. He's got aspirations beyond basketball that LA will, scratch for him. You know what I mean?
Same as New York probably would too. I heard an interesting point.
He would never go to New York.
I don't remember who it was by, but one of the takes I heard on like smaller market teams now is it's not necessarily as big of a deal as it used to be because you have such a big platform with social media. You're still getting all your followers, your fans, your advertisement, what have you. Whereas back in the day, you wouldn't have got the media coverage that you would have like playing in New York, LA, Toronto. But now with social media being what it is, you still get all that coverage. So maybe there's not as much of an allure to go to a bigger city. Do you think any of that's valid? Do you think kind of maybe smaller market teams, because of the social media, are kind of coming up a little bit on the platform? Or?
I think it very obviously is. I mean, Barkley, I think it was Barkley that said that, wasn't it, John?
Yeah, it was either Barkley or Kornheiser or Wilbon. I watched both those ones. So.
Well, I think there's absolutely truth to it. I mean, Harden in Houston, right? That's not what since the Olajuwon days. I mean, when was the last time that you saw Houston up in the forefront the way they are today?
Yeah, that's right.
And him get the kind of fame that he's got. Cleveland, obviously, they're the most obvious ones. but it's all around the league now compared to what it used to be with, Boston and LA, New York and maybe Philly, but no, I think it's all changed. But at the same time, LA, if you're the man like LeBron is, if you are the alpha and you want all the endorsements and you want to work in film after, let's say, or anything like that, LA's the place for him. I think the time has come. Send him to LA.
So we are getting ready for a break, but there's a couple of things I just kind of want to queue up for when we come back after break that I found really interesting. I believe before the All-Star break, the Raptors had the best chance overall by going by statistics to make the finals in the NBA. They had better odds than Golden State, Cleveland, Boston, Houston. So, I found that very interesting. So I kind of like to talk about that and see if it's validated or if it's...
well, their odds would diminish if they had to go through either Houston or Golden State before they got there.
100%. And that's probably why Golden State's odds are a bit lower and same as Houston.
Yeah.
So I found that an interesting one. And then, we'll talk a little bit about the All-Star game, too, and how the overall take of that was. And then just the Hall of Fame vote coming up, or the first ballot guys that have been released. And then when we get back from...
Did you want to talk about the Red Sox just signed J.D. Martinez?
Oh, did they just sign him?
They did.
So we'll get that when we come back from break, too. So, we'll just kind of tease everybody a little bit and let you know what we're talking about. Yeah. So we will go to break, guys, and then when we come back, it'll be TC and Jason and I talking some more sports. And welcome back, folks. Again, I'm John Smith.
Jason Speedy.
And we have TC Cline again in Toronto. So if you missed us right before break, we got most of our hockey done, most of our basketball done. We're going to try and fly through this so we can get a little bit of baseball and football news and probably some Olympic talk, as long as we can get through this pretty quick.
Probably not going to get it through.
No, I'll do my best. I'll do my best. So, like I said before the break, Raptors, I think, had a 49% chance of making the finals. Better odds than any other team in the NBA. Is this warranted? They've played really well. They look like the better team in the East. You kind of made the point before we went to break that if they had to go through Golden State, Houston, San Antonio, any of those guys, their odds would be quite a bit lower. But they don't. So, do you think these odds are warranted, I guess?
Well, I think it's important for them to get the number one seed. That way, you're not facing either Boston or Cleveland, because I think the way it's going to shake out, it'll be, what I think is going to be Toronto, Boston, Cleveland. I think there's just too many games for Cleveland to make up to get into that, barring any crazy injury or just something that we can't explain, like the Raptors lose 8 in a row or something ridiculous like that, right? I think it's important for them to not have to go through both of them. Yeah. That way, Philly isn't going to be easy. Washington plays Toronto tough. Milwaukee's going to be tough. You know what I mean? But I think for them to hold off and not have to go through both of them, I think is going to be more beneficial to them. I do think that, they've been a consistent team throughout the year. They have a very good lineup. Dwayne Casey's done an excellent job coaching. They do deserve that. And Golden State and Houston, one of them isn't going to make it. Yeah. And they're going to beat each other up really good in their, assuming they make it to their, the Western Conference finals.
Anything you'd like to add on to that, TC?
Yeah, I'm hometown team. I'm going to be cheering for the Raptors all the way, of course. I love to see them do well. I love to see them finish first overall at the end of the season and then make a run to the NBA championship. The thing that concerns me with the Raptors more than anything, this year I'm really pleased that they're able to spread the minutes around so that DeRozan and Lowry, and in particular Lowry, can get a little bit of time sitting down during the game. If these guys can stay healthy, what a difference compared to the last 2 or 3 years playoff runs that they've had. But the thing that concerns me is just what you see in the last minute of the game last night in that All-Star game. You need a killer. You need somebody. Remember Chauncey Billups, Mr. Big Shot? Yeah. That's Kyrie Irving. I'm sorry, but it is. He was playoff MVP for me 2 years ago when they beat the Raptors in that thrilling series that they had. He's just a killer. He takes all these big shots. Kobe back in the day, he was a killer. Like these guys are killers. And when Cleveland had both LeBron and Kyrie, of course they're going to the NBA Finals, right? You know, and Golden State has their own. But that's the only thing that kind of concerns me is how Lowry and DeRozan seem to struggle in the big moments. More Lowry than DeRozan in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But even at the end of the game last night, you know, in the last few minutes, Kyrie's driving the lane over and over and over again, taking these incredibly low percentage, you know, drives and shots and finishing it. And then, you know, DeMar can't hit both free throws. I know it's just the All-Star game, but he got 21 points, but he got them when it really didn't matter and there's no D. You know, at the end of the game, when it really counts, where's that killer that you need? So that's what concerns me, I guess, about those guys. But, man, it's fun to watch them right now.
The concern I have myself with the Raptors is come playoff time, that bench is going to shorten up a little bit, and that's where they've had the biggest advantage this year is their bench has played so well. Their bench outscores just about every team's bench. And then, I mean, once the minutes start shortening up and Kyle and DeMar and Serge and Jonas are playing the 40 minutes compared to the 32, whatever they're playing this year or during the regular season, I think that is going to kind of be my biggest concern with them.
I mean, TC is absolutely right. I mean, any successful basketball team has to have that go-to guy. However, Robert Horry has 6 or 7 championships because he hit big shots and was just a winning player on winning teams. Vernon Maxwell, when Houston won back-to-back, you know, Michael Jordan never always took the last game-winning shot in the finals. You know, he kicked it at John Paxson, you know, that sort of stuff. So maybe a Fred VanVleet or C.J. Miles or somebody like that, Serge Ibaka can not have to be, you know, where Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan don't have to be, you know, maybe they make a game-winning decision by passing the ball. You know what I mean? As opposed to having to take it to the hole or making 2 tough free throws, you know. But, I mean, TC's absolutely right with the Kobe and the Kyrie analogies and stuff like that. But sometimes you need those unsung heroes to be successful, too. So maybe, and to your point, their bench has been really consistent, really good all year. Hopefully that translates over to the playoffs because I'm not a big fan of most Toronto teams, as you know. But the Raptors, I really do hope and do root for their franchise because I would like to see, you know, I would like to see them, you know, bring something home to the Toronto faithful, which they definitely.
So we're gonna try and run through the rest of the basketball really quick. The All-Star game overall, my overall take of it was pretty good. It was a pretty good weekend. I mean, slam dunk contest looked like an actual slam dunk contest again. I mean, the skills competition, I don't think that's really necessary, but it's kind of fun to watch too, and it's probably more fun when you're live too, interacting with the stars and all that stuff going on. I guess the biggest negative that I've read and heard about was kind of Kevin Hart's intro, and Kevin Hart kind of being the main guy there. They should kind of maybe let him go, I guess. But
well, he has. You know, one of the best things about the Eagles winning Super Bowl is because he tried to get up on the podium there, and the security guard was like, I'm not really particularly fond of him and whatnot. So he just has to just bring his personality onto everything, and I mean, but you know that's what the younger generation want to see. He's a shining star comedian. Everyone seems to love him. I don't, but...
Oh, and I guess the other thing, too, sorry to interrupt.
Well, the national anthem was, butchered as well, but...
And I was kind of one of the naysayers, I guess, against the NBA All-Star Game, just kind of how it's not very competitive. They did actually make it look competitive, I think, as we've alluded to. The NBA draft, or the draft of the All-Stars, I think, kind of helped with that, too. So next year, I guess... They're saying for sure it will be on TV, so I mean that's good. And then right after, Adam Silver talked about the playoff reseeding, which in my opinion, I think basketball is fine. Hockey is not so fine, but we'll get into that another day, just as it gets closer to playoffs, I guess. And then the last thing really that we have in basketball before we move on to get into some baseball, because there's actually been some moves.
The only the only thing I would say about the basketball, I mean, what's the point?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to have Golden State playing, Philadelphia, I mean, what's the point? We all know who's going to win because we already know who's going to win anyway in the respective alignment as it is now. You know what I mean? Unless there's an injury, which You know, I know when Philly beat the Bulls there a couple years ago, Derrick Rose got hurt in Game 1 or Game 2 or whatever it was, and that changed things. But so I mean, yeah, try it. I mean, for the sake of trying it. But I mean, I don't think you're going to see a lot of
difference.
The right final
teams
four teams are going to be the same final four teams it would have been in any way. I think. But
and then the Hall of Fame ballot was released. Headlining it, I guess, are Steve Nash, Canadian. So I mean that's good. Jason Kidd, who's eligible. Chris Webber, Ray Allen, and Grant Hill. Some really good point guards on there.
And they're all.
I'd like to see I think most of them are going to get in. I see Nash, Kidd, Hill. I mean, I think all those ones that are listed are going to get in. So.
Well, see, the thing is with Basketball Hall of Fame it's basketball. It's not just the NBA Hall of Fame like it is for baseball. Most people, just comparison-wise, think of Major League Baseball as Cooperstown as Major League Baseball. You know what I mean? So what Grant Hill did in college and Steve Nash did for the Canadian, basketball, everything like that sort of stuff. Ray Allen and what he did in college and the records he sent and Jesus Shuttlesworth and all that sort of stuff. So all that stuff. Chris Webber now. I mean, he's really translated into a very good broadcaster, and so I think that all matters, and I think all 5 of those definitely are Hall of Fame worthy without a doubt.
Yeah. Anything else you wanted to add in on basketball before we switch gears here, TC?
Oh, not really. I agree with you guys. I do think that the playoff format could be troublesome if it's a 1-16. Let's say I'll give you a quick scenario. Golden State ends up playing Philly, let's say, 1 versus 16, and then second round there's Lowry gets hurt or DeMar gets hurt or something, and there's an upset. Atlanta upsets Toronto. Something really weird like that happened. To see Golden State have to travel all the way across the country again for round 2, then would kind of hate to see them get punished. Being the best team all year long for something like that. But man, I wouldn't want to be the commissioner or the group that's trying to make the decision on that. Because the flip side of that is that year when you saw Phoenix, what were they, 48 wins? And Atlanta was 6 games under 500. And,
that's right.
And Phoenix doesn't get in, and Atlanta does. And I don't want to see that.
That's true. And you brought up the travel, and that's, logistically, that's a big thing too, right? And with TV deals and, I don't envy them, whoever has to make that decision either. But that is a good point, that kind of happens in most sports too, though. You know what I mean? Like I know that happened with the Patriots the year Brady got hurt. They were still 11-5, but on tiebreakers and that sort of stuff. So, but no, I mean, TC's point is, very valid, and I don't think anybody likes to see that. So how you can tinker with that, we'll see.
Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to a top 16 playoff. Like the top 16 teams make it. The only thing I'll say kind of against it is just sometimes teams are in a weaker division, and but it is what it is. Now we'll get into baseball because there actually has been a few moves anyway. Training season starts in a week, or training camp, I guess. Training camp starts in a week, so I mean.
It's already started, John.
Yeah, well, for the pitchers and catchers, it hasn't fully started.
Spring training games start in a week or two.
We're getting there.
We are getting there, thankfully.
I guess the biggest news for me coming out of baseball, well, not the biggest news, but the news that affects Toronto the most would be Marcus Stroman losing his arbitration case. So, I mean, the GM may have won the battle, but this could end up costing him the war, I guess. It seems like Stroman came out of the meeting with some hurt feelings. He said, this is only going to fuel my fire, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean...
Because something he says all the time.
Well, I mean, if you're holding a grudge against people, like if they're sitting down talking low about you or saying this is why we don't want to give you
Where's
this much.
Where's this come from? It's all in his head, man.
Yeah.
You watch any of their games, all they do is slurp the guy. And then anytime someone like Jeff Blair, criticizes him for going on social media and complaining all the time. I just don't. Who says anything negative about him?
Oh, the GM must have.
Well, that's what happens in arbitration.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah.
You know, he wasn't saying anything bad last year when he won.
No.
You know, I don't get this guy. I don't get him. And
but I do think this arbitration loss could end up costing them in the long run. Just that he might be like, screw you.
Well,
guys,
I mean,
I'm outta
it's
here.
not like
it was over $500,000.
Well, yeah, but when you're
pennies for them.
Yeah, that's fair. But you know, have they really broken the bank to put? You know, I mean,
no. Well. You're right in Toronto, so we'll kind of get your say on this and how everybody else has kind of reacted in Toronto as well.
Yeah, I listen to a lot of the other media too, and certainly popular opinion here is that the act is worn off in Toronto. He's a very emotional young guy, right? Yeah. And if he just shut up and pitched, we would all really love him, and there would never be any kind of a problem.
Absolutely.
I do think it's disappointing that they could have avoided this kind of thing with that extra for $500,000 or whatever. Like, come on, really? You know, and he's worth it. Let's face it. You know, he's performed on the mound. He's worth it. But yeah, he's just too emotional. It's everything with this guy. Enough is enough. You know, social media can be a great thing. It can be a great platform. But if all you're going to do is whine all the time, then you know, it wears out, and nobody wants to hear it anymore.
Yeah. Well, no, and that's true. I mean, look, I mean, we're regular people. You know what I mean? Like, and you know, what would $500,000 do for us and our families? You know what I mean? And you know, he's got a very. I mean, you can never take anything for granted, but I mean, he's probably going to have a very long career. He's going to make tons of money, whether that's in Toronto or somewhere else. But there comes a point where the tide will turn on you, and like TC's kind of alluded to, and I mean, you're right there in the city, like, the shtick will wear thin. Like, you know, well, I mean, as a fan of the Red Sox, the whole David Price thing, you know, that wore thin really quickly. And, you know, it's just, you can only complain about not making enough $1 million or hundreds of thousands that people are going to be like, man, just, shut up and pitch. Like, and we don't want to feel that way, I don't think, as fans, right? But sometimes they kind of make it so.
And then I guess the other big news coming out of Toronto, I believe it was just kind of announced today, was just Josh Donaldson kind of expects to be a free agent come 2018. Just contract extension talks aren't going too well. So I guess that's huge for them. You can't let him go for nothing. So, I mean, come the deadline, I mean, you'd have to ship him out, wouldn't you?
I don't know. I mean, that's a tough spot that Atkins is in. I mean, they, you know, I feel they lost, you know, the window for their current closed. I mean, on paper, Boston and New York are ahead of them. I mean, they have very good pieces. Don't get me wrong. Stroman, Sanchez, Osuna, you know, you can rely on them. Donaldson's, you know, MVP, one of the top 10 players in the league. But the Guerreros and the Bichettes and the Pentecosts and the Dandy Jansons, and these are guys a couple of years away, have a lot of hype behind them, and they'll probably turn out to be very, very good ball players. But they're a couple years away. Does Donaldson, at age 32, 33, does he want to stay around for that and help be, you know,
the mentor?
Well, whomever, you know what I mean? Like, or does Toronto, you know, say they're 20, you know, 15 games out of it, just for argument's sake, 10 games out of it? Do you flip them and get 3 or 4 really high, and then maybe in 2020, 2021, 22, you have, maybe you're the Yankees and the Red Sox of the AL East? I don't know. I mean, that's going to be.
So we got 2 minutes left, I guess, so I do just want to get on to the next one. You mentioned Boston had just signed J.D. Martinez, so you as a Red Sox fan, kind of what's your take on this? Did he get what he was looking for? Did Boston overpay, or? Oh,
no, he didn't get what he was looking for. I mean, Boris promised him a $200 million 7-year contract, and he didn't, you know, 5 years, $110 million, can opt out after year 2. You know, just the landscape of free agent money has changed. I hope he went there to contribute and try and win with the Red Sox, as opposed to just going to the highest bidder, which kind of seems like it is to me, because otherwise he would have signed back in December. But, you know, I'm not him in his situation, so, you know, I just hope it's for the right reasons and not for money. Like, what it seemed like David Price did, and you know, the Red Sox already have the biggest payroll in the majors. A lot of dead money.
Yep.
You know, the Pablo Sandovals, Rusney Castillos, Hanley Ramirez's. What's another few million? It's not my money. I mean, they'll get my money when I go down sometime this summer, but I don't care.
All right, we've got 1 minute left, so I'm getting kind of the talk in the air. The last thing I kind of want to bring up before we do run out of time is just the Olympics. Canada is playing phenomenal. 16 medals, 17 medals now. Canada, U.S. play the women's gold in hockey Thursday, I believe it is. And then, I mean, the men's Olympics got the men's Olympic hockey got the bye. So they're waiting for the semifinal or the quarterfinal winner to play in the semifinals. U.S. is still in it as well. I believe they have to play Finland for a chance to play Czech Republic, sort of thing. And then, I mean, it could be another Canada-U.S. final, but we'll see how it goes. We'll give you the last 20 seconds, TC, to kind of wrap it up for us on what you think of the Olympics. And, I mean, Canada-U.S. could be the biggest game for the women's hockey in a long time, just because the U.S. has been dominant other than the Olympics. So,
yeah, I'll be quick. Just go Canada. I think the women can do it. They've won, 6 of the last 7 against the States. They got to play better than they did in the first time they met them in the round robin, but I'd love to see them do it again. And, hey, does anyone else think that the best athletes in the Olympics are the figure skaters? Wow.
Oh, yeah. That's I can't believe. I can't believe, I'm actually, I want to see Tessa Virtue and Scott Moore skate. You know what I mean? I never would have thought I would ever say something like that.
No, and that is it, guys. We'll see you in a few weeks. Thanks again.